Hey, good evening, Des Moines, Iowa. Welcome to the Doc and Lefty program here in the plush and air-conditioned. I said that last week, I think. I called them plush and air-conditioned studios.
And thankfully so, because
at
it is awful.
webcast1live.com. With me, as always, is my BMOC, my PIC, my BFF, my
bromancer.
My number one bromance boyfriend, whatever you want to call it. The good Dr. Doc, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm going to tell you, it is blazing hot outside. It is terrible. Brad's over here going, no, it's not. That's because he's a man. Blake and I, we're not that manly.
No.
And in fact, we've turned the resolution down as much as we can not to show the hideous stains on Blake's shirt.
It's
today.
pretty bad, and I got to tell you, I usually like to try and dress up when Senator Zahn is here, just to make things, the modicum of respectability, since I've got to be the one that carries that torch, and usually most of the time. And I was working in the office today, and I didn't have anything place to be. I didn't have quarter. I didn't have to do anything, and I was going to do some hardcore cleaning. And walking, and I'm a little out of shape, I'll grant you that, but walking from my car up to the studio did this to the front of my shirt. So you can just kind of have a clue as to how warm it is outside. But like we said, we've got a three-time guest now, friend of the show, Senator Brad Zahn from Urbandale with us.
He's now super friend of the show.
Super friend of the show. You will get an encoder ring and some superpowers here, I promise you. But Senator, how's it going?
It's great. I think the weather's beautiful out. I look at what could happen. The Farmer's Almanac prediction came out today, and it's going to be very cold and very snowy is what they're saying. So I would take 97-degree heat any day over the snow that flies.
That's right, because you don't have to shovel heat.
I agree with that 100%. But there's go ahead.
Let's start in with a little local politics. We got a lot of votes going on today. A lot of school board votes going on. I see that you're supporting a person named Luke Sibley out there in the Southeast Polk.
That's correct.
All right. So
I would just tell you this. I trust him to manage my own money. He has got an Edward Jones franchise in Altoona. And if I trust him to manage my money, I certainly would trust this person to manage the school district's money. He's a great businessman. I think that that's what's needed on the Southeast Polk School Board. And I hope he is successful. And anybody that hasn't voted, I encourage you to vote for him and only him.
All right. Now, I'm not going to tell you how you voted, but today, at least out in Urbandale where we live, there was 2 new tax levies on the board, both for DMAC, both basically the way I read it for improvement of their grounds and maintenance. My first question is do you think a college such as DMAC should get the benefit of Polk County taxpayer money?
I do believe so, and the reason why I do is because I think it's a great institution for a lot of other kids that would normally go to, the regular universities that are out there. Secondly, they do a lot of job training or job retraining, and I do know that the Des Moines Area Community Colleges has got the lowest tax rates in the state of Iowa. It's a great alternative for kids that do even want to go to a four-year school to be able to get some credit hours, the entry-level credit hours that are required, at a lower rate than what is provided at the universities and some of the colleges that are around here. But secondly, I would say that it's a great place. I think it's great to let the voters weigh in. That's something that happens periodical from time to time, and it's not every year or 2 years. So they're asking you to renew their levy, and I think that they need to have a good infrastructure and be able to maintain the buildings they have. Mm-hmm. With that said, I also think that our taxes are too darn high, and I'd love to talk about property taxes and some of the things going on there, but
we'll get to that.
So anyway, I think DMAC does it right, and so.
Looks like Lefty's chomping at the bit to say something. Did I just misinterpret that? Or? No. I was curious as to why you were putting the crosshairs on one of our finest community college institutions around the Polk County, Des Moines area, Doc.
Well, I agree with Brad 100% about the quality of this program. They have done a lot of good things with DMAC. They have a world-class chef program.
Yes, they do.
World-class. And they have, oh, by the way,
I got a bunch of friends who are graduates of that.
oh yeah, I got a boy of mine who's a graduate of that,
Oh.
So, and then October 19th, they have their big feed up there. So that's always great. But their criminal justice program is bar none, I believe, the best in the country. They get all kinds of speakers from around the country, around the world to come speak. My issue is, and I agree with Brad, one, our taxes are too high now. Number two, at this time of continued economic insecurity, DMAC is one of the few places that I think continues to be successful, and I really don't believe that they need taxpayer help at this time to keep improving their infrastructure. They're always doing something up there at DMAC.
Well, little news flash for you. All of these colleges are reliant on taxpayers' money,
All of them.
except for the private ones. And I think it's an alternative. You look at the per credit hour that they charge at Des Moines Area Community College, it's the lowest in the state of Iowa. With that said, I'd love to talk about K-12 and some of the spending that's going on there. I do recognize that we got a lot of problems in our education. I think we're fortunate in the state of Iowa to have our community colleges. I have a son that went for a year to try to save some money to transfer to a 4-year university. So I think it's a good institution, but I'm always wary of someone asking me for more tax dollars. But what that was is it was just an extension of what's already in place.
And you went to UNI.
I didn't go to UNI. I went to Luther College.
You went to Luther.
Drake.
I'm sorry. I thought you went to UNI for some reason, but you have family and you support UNI.
Yes, I do.
I completely blew that. Well, anyway, as somebody
okay.
that went to 4 years at the University of Iowa, so you got a guy, you got a Go Hawks, right?
Yep.
Hey,
Go Hawks.
Iowa State. Jake Rudock. That's all I got to say. But someone, we got somebody that went to a 4-year state school here. We got somebody that went to a private school in Iowa, and I can tell you that the community college program that has really been bolstered over the last 10, 15 years. It used to not be very good in Iowa. The community college infrastructure wasn't very good, and we spent a lot of time, a lot of investment. I would say even longer than like maybe the last 20 years in beefing that up. I know the Kirkwood Community College in Iowa City has seen some vast improvement. DMAC the same way, and I can tell you that as a cost-saving measure, you are not going to lose a lot in that first 2 years before you transfer to a 4-year school. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, now this is anecdotal, this isn't evidence of anything, but that maybe my parents' dollars would have been better served had I gone to a 2-year school for maybe a semester or two, because those prerequisites, those gen ed classes that you get in your first year at a 4-year school, I don't know, you can do those pretty much anywhere. And so I kind of learned how to take advantage of the party atmosphere in Iowa City a little bit more so than the academic atmosphere. I didn't get that until I got into my major, when I actually cared about what I was doing. And so I think that the senator makes a good point, and I just wanted to piggyback off that perspective.
Well, we're going to be back right after the break. We have special guest and super friend of the show, Brad Zahn. We'll be back right after the break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for being here. You know
that the earthquake was my fault.
Well, it's a shaky thing that is going on at the webcast1live.com studios. That's here
right.
in beautiful downtown Des Moines. We want to thank our sponsors here, and we got just a friend of the show, super friend of the show. Senator Brad Zahn with us for the entire hour today. We're talking education in this first few segments, and Senator, I know that one of the things that you have campaigned on consistently throughout your time in Iowa politics has been K through 12, or primary education, secondary education in this state. And so, what are some of the things that you've seen this summer? I mean, I know that you start in what, a couple of weeks, right? You're back to work relatively quickly.
No, we start in January.
You start, okay, January. All right.
I thought you all were going to come back for a session in the fall.
We were if we didn't have the education reform done, and then there was a lot of discussion about expanded Medicaid.
Yeah, that's right.
Handled all that during
That's
the
right.
session.
That's right. We're a little bit behind, but what have you seen over the summer that maybe some of the, I know it's probably too early to tell on some of the reforms that were passed in this last session, but what you've seen that you're encouraged, what needs more improvement, what you're going to be working on in January?
Well, we did education reform package that I voted against this last session. Everything kicks in July 1st, so there's not a lot of evidence that I could come into with scientific, evidence to say this worked, this did not work. So the jury's still out. But my personal opinion, and the reason why I voted against the education reform, is it'll do nothing to improve student performance. There was a lot in there for teachers, which we've got awesome, great, hardworking teachers in the state of Iowa. But until we start having the conversation about the two problems with education, and that would be the curriculum that's being taught to our students and the teaching methods that are being forced upon the good teachers here in the state of Iowa, then we're not going to improve education. And I'm very frustrated about, I've got a bill that's very controversial. It says shut down the Department of Education, which would let all the schools and it would obviously, there's some functions of the Department of Education that would have to be replaced or moved around to different departments in Iowa. Okay. Obviously, I'm not a United States Senator. And then give parents the choice to where they go to school at. I just found out here a couple weeks ago that the Iowa basic skills test that we all probably took if you're from Iowa this last time, what they've done now, it's all computerized now. It's not where you take a lead pencil and pencil in the marks. What they've done now, the basic skills test is, luckily they did keep it in Iowa City. There was some conversations to go to an out-of-state group, but they do manage this through Iowa City, through the Iowa Basic Schools, tests in Iowa City. But what they've done now, and this is really unfortunate, and the average person doesn't know this, is when those students log on and start taking that test, depending on how they answer the first few questions, they either dumb down the test or they raise the standard of the test. And I think that's really unfortunate, and it's disingenuous to our students that are out there.
Well, that sounds completely unfair.
That's pretty standard. That's how the GRE is.
Well, it's wrong, is what it is.
Okay.
And this is a new practice that's happening with the Iowa Basic Skills Test. I mean, I came home with an Iowa Basic Skills Test, and we came home to our parents and said, here's where we're at. We're either 5th grade or 3rd grade or whatever level we're at.
So what would be, I guess I don't understand the point of either dumbing down or making the test harder if you get the first few questions right. I don't understand.
I can speak to this a little bit just because I kind of know what you're talking about. It's not like the first few and then it's a flat plane across it. The test sort of cycles up or kind of moves up and down depending on the performance of the test taker as they're taking the test. So it's a dynamic grading system. And I guess I didn't know they were doing that personally. I don't have an opinion. And so when I was saying, I just know that there are a lot of standardized tests at the higher levels, like the GRE, like I think not necessarily the LSAT, but not the LSAT, certainly not the LSAT. Right. They don't do that. But like the PSATs, I think are a little bit like that. Some of the people that researchers feel like that is kind of it takes into account more the disparate levels and kids' abilities. I don't know anything about. I can't.
So do you
give
get
an
less
opinion,
of a
but
score if they dumb down the test, or do
Well,
you get a higher score, or does
you get
it
the
work
same.
the other way?
They get the same score, and I think.
So in other words, they either make the test harder for those that are at the lower end to get the same score, or they make the test harder for those at the higher end in order to smooth out the scores. Is that what the purpose is?
Here's bottom line for me is this: how can we measure the students and their performance from one year to the next if we have this system in place? I think it's a wrong system. I think what we've become in our schools is a touchy-feely, make everybody feel good about what they're doing in school. And when I meet with employers, which I do from occasion, certainly when I was running for Congress, a great example is there was a Pella manufacturing company, I'm not going to name the company, that told me the biggest challenge that they have is that kids that come out of school, high school or college, that they have to pull them aside for 2 months to do remedial training of the basic skills that we expect our schools to provide. And so we got a big problem here. Education is the 800-pound gorilla in our budget. We medicate, we educate, and we incarcerate. That's basically what we do. That's where most of the money's come from,
Right.
our tax dollars. It's 60% of our budget is education. What I've seen as a trend, and I've been in the Senate for the last 9 years, is that every year I've been there, we have increased funding for K through 12, but performance goes down. Now, I will have to recognize that there has been some leveling off that's been going on, but we are getting our rear ends kicked in student performance. And I would give you just an example. We all talk about the United States, Midwest, that kind of stuff. In India, you are told, and they do things in the old school way with discipline, uniforms, and everything like there in India, but it is mandatory in 5th grade that you take calculus. That's where we're getting killed here in the United States. And so I really have a problem with changing these standards. And of course, we know that the teachers are teaching towards those tests. I don't know. I'm old fashioned.
Yeah.
I think you're a lot younger, but Pat and I are about the same age. I mean, we were taught the basics, and it just seems like that's missing right now. We have got to talk about the core curriculum, which is a failed curriculum. I voted against it 7 or 8 years ago when it came through. They've been tested in Washington. It was a failed curriculum. It teaches different, we got away from phonics, which we know works, and then we do new math and some of these other curriculums that are out there. The teaching methods that are out there are strapping our teachers down, not to mention the paperwork, which the paperwork comes from the Department of Education out in D.C. as well as the state of Iowa. I truly am very passionate about education reforms to allow parents to pick the best schools to send their kids, public or private. I don't discriminate against one. There's a lot of good public schools that are out there, but the bad ones need to close. Now, there was a lot of people that were upset about the charter school, which charter basically unties their hands on some of the regulations, gives them more freedoms. Where everybody was upset about the charter school that the Des Moines School Board closed on the east side. I'm saying, hooray! Close these bad schools down, and let's keep, let's invest in these schools that have higher performance. Now, I recognize that you have schools in poor areas that are out there, and they're in dysfunctional families, and they don't have moms and dads that are trying to prepare these kids. But still, my wife and I just saw a program on TV in New York and Washington, D.C., where they have these charter schools, where you get into a lottery and you get on your hands and knees and pray to get into these schools. I mean, these kids and these parents want their students to succeed, and they want their kids to do well and succeed as adults. So we have a lot of issues. Unfortunately, the education reform bill that we did with some of the mentoring and some of the things like that, it will do nothing to increase student performance in the state of Iowa. And for the amount of money that we're spending, we need to have those hard discussions. Don't agree with me on everything, but we have to have these conversations.
Well, we'll be back right after the break. We're here with Senator Brad Zahn, super friend of the show. We'll be back right after the break. Now, which Wonder Twin are you? Are you the female one?
Probably.
All right. Wonder Twins will activate. Oh, you know what? We need to get a Polk County commercial in.
Oh, hey, go
Actually,
ahead.
I have it sitting at home. Polk County GOP is a proud sponsor of our show. They have we just had the picnics this last weekend. It was pretty good. Brad was out there. hobnobbing. Nobody works a crowd like Brad's on. I'm going to tell you. And,
I've seen it.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
saying,
amazing.
because they're all my friends.
They're all his friends. And
Makes it easy.
We got to listen to the Senate candidates. I got to listen to Matt Whitaker flip flop on Obamacare about how you can't defund it, but he's going to vote to defund it. And then we got to listen to Joni Mitchell.
Whoa.
Joni Ernst. Joni Ernst from way back when. Well, no, not Joni Ernst. Oh my God! I should have just stayed with that stinking commercial.
It's Joni Ernst. She's a state senator, and she
Yes.
serves with me.
And-
Yes.
but she decided that she was going to reverse her stance on not reverse it, but she was going to reduce her from 3 terms to 2 terms, term limits.
Oh,
So she did that. That was pretty interesting. Anyway, these are the kind of interesting things that happened. Sam Clovis was there. David Young showed up and basically, to my eye, said, geez, I'm a political insider. I know how things operate. I would like to represent you. And I'm not quite sure how that played in the crowd. The people I was sitting around wasn't too good. But they have a whole bunch. They have several West Side conservative breakfast clubs coming up that they occur on Wednesdays, every other Wednesday. They also have the Rob Kelly dinner coming up in November, and that's going to be Senator Ted Cruz is coming. I think that's what Darrell told me when I saw him at the picnic. Anyway, it's a great organization, PolkCountyGOP.com. Phone number is 280-6438. From what we were talking a little bit before the break about K through 12 and how really there's a couple of things that Brad talked about in the last segment that disturbed me. It seems like these tests are now much more like social engineering. You need to be able to take an accurate study of where your children are, and whether it makes them feel bad or not, you need to be able to say, listen, this is where you're not doing as well, and here's a plan that we can do to make you go better and have better scores and do better overall. The other thing is there's a lot of changes in our school curriculum from when Brad and I grew up. And when we grew up, Iowa was number 1 in the U.S. and the U.S. was number 1. There was something that worked well with the way we did it that isn't working well now, and that's clear. Iowa's 28th, and U.S. is 35th in the world as far as education. And I just stop and I think this is incredible. We have places like Malaysia beating us, and that shouldn't go on.
well, okay. I guess from a ranking in the U.S. and the world, I mean, I think that sure you could suggest that there's some slippage or some outright the bottom falling out. You could also say that a lot of the rest of the world is catching up, and that's good for the world as a whole. As far as the curriculum changes and sort of the reaction to them, this is my biggest problem with the conservative argument that hasn't necessarily been articulated here today, but what you hear a lot from conservatives and Republicans about how to fix education, and that is to toss the whole model out, just junk the whole thing and start over. And what I want to kind of just maybe proclaim from the rooftops is that we have this notion of America as this powerhouse from about 1949 to now, and while we were becoming that powerhouse post World War II up through the 50s and the 60s, most of the schools were public schools in this country. The success and the country as a superpower was born on the backs of publicly educated kids. You were a publicly educated kid. I was a publicly educated kid, and you were a publicly educated kid.
I was not.
You were not. You went to a private school.
Correct.
Okay, so we got 2 out of 3 that went to public schools, and those 2 are now professionals in our community, and I think that the continued denigration of what public schools have done throughout history and even today is troubling to me from the Republican side. Number 2, there are things that definitely need to be changed, and I would not back away from that. And one of the main things that and it sounds kind of dumb because it's not a big policy point, but why are we still having a summer vacation? a 3-month summer vacation in 2013. More and more kids are now. I mean, we did it because of agriculture, and I'm going to get in big trouble with farmers and ranchers and all the agricultural folks in Iowa because it's still a gigantic part of our economy and our population. But I can tell you, I've got my dad as a teacher for 30 years. My ex-wife's a teacher. I have a lot of teachers in my family, and everybody down the line says the number one thing that hurts student performance is that first 6 weeks coming back from a vacation that they have to relearn everything. You talk about your manufacturing friend down in Pella having to reteach the basics in remedial courses. That's because those kids graduate, they don't think about anything for 3 months. We have a listener that just texted in that said that I was wrong with my assumption that it doesn't create equality, or that it's not that it doesn't equate. You all know what I said. Yes. So he said it is an iterative algorithm. I asked him what that was because I have no idea. And basically, this guy's a university level professor at a respected national university. He says it actually is better at establishing a range with accurate lows and highs, and it determines the pattern of performance more quickly than standard testing. So this is from a person that's a professor that obviously understands what's more so than I do. So I just figured I'd pass that on. One of the things, and I know we have Brad Zahn as a guest, but one of the things I'm going to say to Lefty over here is you have to look at what the results are. And the results are, comparatively so, we have been falling and falling and falling since we started adopting these new procedures. I understand, that, the biggest challenge is first 6 weeks back. But if these kids are taking a month off in the middle of summer now, some of these kids that I see, the teachers are still saying, well, we have these 6 weeks is still a problem. So unless you go to school year round, that particular problem isn't going to be big or isn't going to be resolved. Plus, the problem isn't that big. No, that was only one of the things. One of the things that I was sort of talking about. I wasn't talking about that as like the sole reason. Well, because we've had that. That's also an old school thing we've always had in this country is the summer break, because we used to be an agricultural country. My biggest, and I wonder, and I'm going to toss this out to my conservative friends here. Do you suppose that some of the problems with public schools started to happen when political operatives seeking political advantage started throwing their weight behind private schools and private education, and pulling away some of the best performers from public school, thereby tanking the very program that they hate, just like you're seeing in the folks that want to defund Obamacare, just like the folks you want to see who want to defund Social Security. We're going to let Brad answer that question. Lack of faith in public institutions mean they work less. What do you think? You think
it's absolutely not true. I'm not saying that they don't meddle into where they shouldn't be. Oh, I'm talking about Republicans and Democrats.
Throw a shot. I throw a haymaker, Senator.
I will tell you.
He's much more polite than either one of us.
Give you an example. I had a forum this last year, and there was a superintendent in the crowd, and he says, we're doing a lot of great things in our schools, and what we're doing now is we're asking our kids when they get into their class how they feel about this class. And what would they change about the class? Okay, I'm okay with the change thing, but how do you feel? I was never asked when I was a kid how I feel about a class. We've just become, we've dumbed down education. I will recognize what you said about the other countries have moved up in their levels because we've become, the countries are striving to do that. And I know that it's a lot more competitive environment than we used to have. But there's a couple things that I would say. Actually, two things I'd say. First of all, the kids and the parents control the schools. The superintendent and the teachers don't control the schools anymore. Because when I got in trouble, I was worried about going home to mom and dad. Now, these parents come in and they start arguing with these teachers.
I'd agree with that 100%.
And they take the kids, little Johnny's side. The second thing is that the ISCAs of the world, the unions of the world, they have got a lot bigger influence in our schools today. I can tell you, any kind of education reform, it doesn't go anywhere. No conversations on anything that happens in the classroom until ISCA in the state of Iowa approves that. And I think they're a cancer to our schools, to be quite honest with you. But I recognize some of the things you said. In regards to summer, we've always had summers. In Urbandale, you as a parent have a choice to send your kids to year-round schools. They do have year-round elementary school there. So I don't know that I buy that argument. We still have to get back to, and I'm not trying to pick on the public schools. There is no doubt you two, and I could pick out the good schools in the Des Moines area, the Des Moines public schools. I mean, Roosevelt High School puts out some of the brightest students that there are.
We got to break in. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be back here in about 3 minutes. We have a special guest today, Senator Brad Zahn. We're talking currently about K through 12 education. We're going to continue this discussion after we get back because apparently Lefty's going to get on a roll here. We'll be back right after the break.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wonderscheid.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Welcome back, everybody, and this is Webcast One Live. Thanks for sticking around for the first half hour of the show. We got Senator Brad Zahn, and just like every time the lefty guy in the room throws a haymaker and Doc gets hamstrung, and by the commercial break, me using the sidelines as the 12th man in a football game, we're going to move on to another topic.
This is another one of these. This is another one of these commercial breaks where I wish we'd have just kept the microphones on.
Just right. Kidding. No.
So what are we talking about now?
One of this. I want to pick the senator's brain. I know that you are an expert at state and local politics. Like that's beyond question. But I wanted to. You've had some contact with our congressional delegation in Washington D.C. and I want to pick your brain about this serious stuff. I don't know that any of us are going to be able to get home for the start of the president's speech tonight. I think it starts maybe at 7 or 8 o'clock. And we won't get home quite to see the first part of it. But have you had any conversations with folks with Steve King, Tom Latham?
I have not. I've been busy. I have a lot of things going on, and I travel a lot, so I have not. I was kind of open-minded about everything until I saw the video, which we all probably saw with the New York Times. And these are the people we're supposed to be helping. that are shooting people in the back of the head. And so in full disclosure, I've got a sophomore, I've got a senior, and I've got a 22-year-old. I mean, I think I'm probably like most Americans. Number one, we better get all the facts straight before we commit to this. And second of all, I don't know I don't just say this. I'm not supportive of sending our people to Syria. I don't care what the president says tonight. I am glad that the Russian president did offer this solution for the time being to say we'll get rid of all the chemical things and out of Syria. I think what's going on there is terrible all the way around. But I really, to answer your question, I have not had conversations with any of our elected officials in D.C.
I can say that this weekend, Tom Latham got up there and gave about a 5-minute speech. Of course, he, it was a typical political speech till right at the end when he said, I'm going to go on record. There's no reason for us to go into Syria.
Yeah, he's been against it from the very beginning.
And Steve King has been against it. I saw.
No, Steve King hasn't said any word about it yet.
Well,
as of last week, he hadn't.
Well, no, but he said our Steve King, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Our Steve King, as of last week, had not come out one way or the other. If he's come out since our last show, I hadn't seen it.
Yeah, I think. Well, the problem is things that happen publicly versus not publicly. And I don't think he's going to be supporting this at all. There's a lot of blowback, and Brad can speak to this. There's a lot of blowback against the Republican establishment on this for trying to run cover for Obama on this. John Boehner has just been vilified in all the conservative rags.
Well,
and so it's one of these things where we've talked. There's no benefit to the United States at all for any intervention in Syria. And tonight, MSN has breaking news that basically he's going to argue, well, yeah, let's let the Russians and the UN try to handle this, but if they don't get it done, we're going to bomb them. And it's one of these things where
which is a non-starter for Putin. Putin already came out today and said that if there's any threat of an airstrike, that they wouldn't do this deal. That there has to be guaranteed no airstrike no matter what, or they're not going to take the chemical weapons. The thing is, and you and I have talked about this several times, and so I agree with you. Maybe not for the same kind of reason. We don't need to go. We don't need to ever go, because these kinds of things require a political solution. Had we been more invested in a political solution 2.5 years ago, we might be somewhere by now. But I think that it's really interesting that you consider it running cover for the president, what the Republican establishment is doing. I'm saying it's being remarkably intellectually consistent, because they've been doing running down this march for 10 years now. At this point, if the Republicans are going to say we were right about Iraq, then they have to say we're right about Syria and we should attack Syria. You had Bill Kristol, Paul Wolfowitz, all those the same old guys come out in support of an attack on Syria, and I'm saying, well, here's some folks that are actually not playing politics, but they're making the same exact mistake they did 10 years ago.
You think that's true? You think Obama's making the same mistake, George? Well, I honestly don't believe George Bush made a mistake in the decision. It was the execution. Do you believe Obama's making the same kind of error in judgment with the Syrians?
I was raised to always respect the President of the United States, and I continue to try to do that. I think what's gone on has been a comedy of errors with John Kerry and some of the misstatements that he's made. I think our foreign policies are a joke. But with that said, there certainly was mistakes that President Bush made and many other presidents before him. I'm an Iowa State senator. You're kind of getting in the area. This is stuff that you guys probably have more knowledgeable about. What little I've seen, I have a lot of caution, and I would not support the troops going there. And I'm learning tonight about what Putin said about, but let's see what the president has to say, and hopefully he'll do the right thing. I do not stand behind John Boehner and some of the other people that have went out there, and I don't even know these other people that you're talking about, but I can tell you that really. This is a tough decision for our lawmakers to do, but hey, they signed up for the job, and hopefully they'll make the right decision. And hopefully the president will be making the right decision. I'll be praying for him to make the right decision. Yeah,
we'll be back right after the break. We have our special guest, Senator Brad Zahn, joining us tonight. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more local politics. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Doc and Lefty. We're here every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on webcast1live.com.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Lefty with Doc and Lefty. We want to thank all of our sponsors, Bertroche and Associates, the Polk County GOP, and all the sponsors for the studio. It's what keeps the lights on. It keeps our producer, our wonderful producer, in skinny jeans and flip flops, and just kidding. And really, we do thank them from the bottom of our heart. So take a look at all of our sponsors that throughout the show, and make sure that you're helping them do their job, so we can help bringing you perspective and commentary about the week's events. We're talking a little bit, and I know that we just want to touch. I would be remiss. I would be remiss in my duties as a legitimate journalist of some repute if I didn't bring up something that you have been bombarded with over the last couple of weeks, and that's this. I'm not going to say what I really think it is, but it's an investigation into State Senator Ken Sorensen out of the Lynn County area, and some of the things that were going on with him. And
Ken's not from Lynn.
I thought he's Warren County. That's
Warren County.
My apologies, Warren County.
Right.
I get them confused all the time because they're so close together. Anyway, you've been involved, and you've made some statements. You've made some in some interviews, and I wanted to know if you wanted to clarify anything that you've said, anything that you've gone on the record as saying, or if you have anything that you are able to share with us, because I know that you're involved a little bit, and since he is a colleague, I know that you also don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this.
Well, first of all, I thought you were going to talk about traffic cameras.
We can talk about that.
We can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I will tell you this is I do not regret anything I've said.
Mm-hmm.
It is very uncomfortable because he is a colleague of mine. I do have information that I can't share on this program because I'm part of the Urbandale Police investigation. I'm part of the Senate Ethics investigation, and I've yet to be interviewed. There is a time scheduled that I'll be doing that. And I'm just going to stand by what I said earlier. And for all the Democrats that are out there, if a Democrat was doing something wrong that I had knowledge of, I would be doing the same thing. And it's unfortunate. It's been a major distraction for all of us, and that includes the people on the other side of the aisle, and it makes us all look bad. I do have, I certainly had a lot of exposure during the Michelle Bachmann campaign, and had conversations and was aware of some of the things that were going on, and have had conversations with Kent as well. But I believe that let's let the process move forward. I said on the show, based on the knowledge that I have, he needs to resign, and that's really all I can say right now. We'll see what happens in regards to the investigation. It'll come in from the special investigator that was appointed by the Supreme Court, our Supreme Court Justice, and he will come, I assume, to the Ethics Committee soon with a report based on the people that he interviewed, based on factual information, and said, this is what I found out. Then it'll be up to the Ethics Committee to make that decision, and ultimately the Senate, where we might be voting one way or the other, censorship, or I really don't even know what the options are.
Right.
But if I was in Kent's shoes, I would resign.
I have a couple of questions. I guess my first question is how much damage do you think this entire scandal did to Michelle Bachmann for her presidency and her subsequent congressional run? And I guess that's my first question.
She's out.
Well,
She's out. She's not going back.
The first that I would say,
but she beat this guy just barely, though.
Well, first what I would say is she always argued these points that what Kent has been accused of. And then I'm not going to get into the weeds here, but I certainly don't think it hurt her reputation. And it certainly has not brought a bright light to the Iowa caucuses process. I mean, this whole thing was started back with Ed Fallon when he was governor. I know he's got a show here, but I mean, the Democrats wanted to get to him because he was making money off of his campaign funds. And so then they voted for a bill. I don't know how many years ago I voted for it, saying that you should not be able to receive money from your campaign account or a political party, or directly or indirectly, or even a family member. And so that thing was all started. Now the House has different rules than the Senate has, and we voted on it. And I believe that all of us should know what the rules are going in. I recognize that this isn't new to the state of Iowa. I mean, I know of many, many years ago where I've been offered money to $750 a month to whatever to endorse a presidential candidate, and then they use me as a consultant. As I mentioned in some of the interviews before, I think that takes away the genuineness of the endorsement that you have. I can tell you right now, I didn't receive one dime from any political campaign, nor would I do that. And actually, I lost money because I was, taking money out of my own pocket to help out with some of the my own personal travel expenses.
Now, if the Senate Ethics Board finds Senator Sorensen not guilty, or if they say, listen, if they do anything less than remove him, I guess is my question. How much damage is that going to do to to basically Iowa politics, and particularly the Republican Party, if they don't censor him somehow?
Well, I don't know the answer to your question. I think we just got to let it play out.
Just got to let it play out. All right. So, well, that's all we're going to ask about Kent.
Yeah.
So
we don't want to get too far on a limb.
We have a super friend. We've never had a super friend in here today, so you don't know which one he is yet. It could be Superman.
It could be.
Could be.
Definitely not Superman.
All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the Board of Regents, and we were talking during one of the breaks about how it's always a political process, and I guess Blake brought up a point is if maybe it should be less politically motivated. So I guess, if you would kind of take us through, why we have the Board of Regents, and then maybe a way that you would change the Board of Regents, let's say if you were a governor.
Yeah, well, first of all, the Board of Regents been around for many, 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 many years, and they are the people that oversees what goes on in our university, as well as all the budgets in our university. Now, we appropriate money to them, but then they get in there and they figure out what they need to build, and they make recommendations. It comes to the Board of Regents. They decide what they want to do. How I would change things, all of our boards that the governor appoints, he is by law has to take so many Democrats, so many Republicans, and then he's got some general people that might be in the technical field that they're in. But in the particular case of the Board of Regents, it is partisan. I mean, unfortunately that it is. If you get a Democratic governor, he still has his hands tied, or a Republican governor. My frustration, and I was not trying to be disrespectful to Governor Branstad, because I did the same thing to Governor Vilsack and the same thing to Governor Culver. My frustration is we don't put enough average, ordinary parents on the Board of Regents. I recognize they did add a student on that several years ago, which is a good move, because we need to know how it affects them, because they're in our universities. But it seems like in the past, it's always been more of a political appointee, or someone that helped you out with the campaign, or maybe even someone that donated your campaign. Now, I don't really dig into the dirt, and I know that there was one regent that was voted on that didn't make a lot of contributions. Listen, I sat there and I listened to and tried to remove myself politically to all the regents that were being interviewed in front of the Education Committee. If I was an employer, I would not have hired those people based on how they answered the questions. I thought that the doctor from Fort Dodge, or where he was, and he was a Democrat, did a terrible job with the interview, and really was a very, I thought, I better watch what I say here, but I thought he didn't really want to answer our questions, and seemed like we were wasting his time. And the other regent that was a current regent, which I have concerns about, because these kids are being strapped with too much money in debt when they graduate. You know, we talk about K through 12 education costs in our universities, which that's what the Board of Regents do. They oversee that, are out of control costs. And the student debt, and every time they turn around, with the exception of this last year, and I was glad that they did decide to level the tuition costs, is they've went up every year. So this one person had a track record for me. And the way he answered his question when he was pressed on a particular issue is go, well, I didn't read it because it was I didn't want to read it because it was bad news. Well, I'm sorry. A little news flash for you. We all in the cheap seats have to deal with the reality. Bad news or good news. And so I did vote against him. But, you know, I've been very frustrated. I've been very vocal about the tuition set aside, which is a ripoff to me as I write the check every month. And I'm not saying I don't want to help out other kids, but they did it in a disguise, and they did not let us know until it became public that they're doing that. Now, they say they're going to phase that out. I'll believe that when I see it. So I've had a lot of frustrations. I've asked 2 questions since I've been in the Senate. A, what's your graduation rate? And B, how long does it take? And to this day, I cannot get those answers back. They kind of live in their own world. And I have a son that's in one of the Board of Regents, and they've got a great education. A lot of those schools do, and you're a product of it. And so, you know, they're good institutions, but we need to have more average, ordinary Iowans on those Board of Regents that live in the real world that we all do, rather than sometimes, not all, very wealthy political contributors.
Now, speaking of wealthy contributors, if you're wealthy, you can contribute to the Polk County GOP by going to polkcountygop.com or calling Ryan Keller or Daryl Carney at 280-6438. They are a sponsor of the show. Other sponsors, of course, is my firm, Retrosh & Associates, which is a psychiatric firm for children, adolescents, and adults. You can get a hold of us at 334-9484 to schedule an appointment. We have many good therapists, many specialties. And, of course, Lubinas Law Firm. They're over there on the south side. 285-0462 is your number.
That's correct.
And that's been a number that's been around at least for 35 years. So it's a good number to call. Now, Brad was wanting to talk a little bit about traffic cams, and so do I. So do I.
I'm not.
Those traffic cams irritate the living bejesus out of me. And I saw 2 different studies that show these traffic cams actually cause more accidents at those intersections.
You know, I feel like that we talk about the traffic cams every time we have super friend Senator Brad Zahn on Doc and Lefty
because he's
program.
the only guy that's willing to take them on.
But the question is, I mean, the first time that you were on the show, we were talking about proposed legislation. Then we were talking about the vote that didn't go through. Now, has there been anything new since you've been out of session that with the traffic cam issue?
First of all, I did get a vote on.
You did? No, I know you did, but I don't think it didn't get passed.
That's correct. The only new news here is that we did find out that in Clive, it is about revenue rather than public safety. That's the new news that has come out. Obviously,
that's been confirmed.
It's the way they reacted when they voted him out. Then they voted him to turn him back on. $700,000 that the council just said, we got to have. What are we gonna do? We don't have $700,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my number one priority. We have a lot of bigger fish to fry. It is something that irritates me, and I will continue to work on.
It's that pebble in the shoe problem. I can tell you know. I remember the last time you were here, I had mentioned that I thought that I'd gotten flagged on that turning on to Hickman by the interstate, and I never got anything. So I must have got the guy behind me. But I can tell you that just the idea that I can't now take a right turn on red where it's allowed, without danger of getting flashed by one of those things, it's irritating. It's the pebble in the shoe.
Yep, it's a bad idea.
There's a lot of inconsistencies with these traffic cameras, and we could talk all day about them, but I agree with what you're saying. And it really, to me, that's a gotcha cam when they actually change the rules in an intersection saying, no, you can't turn right on red here where you can everywhere else around the Des Moines area. I think it doesn't matter what city it is. And there's a lot of abuses going on.
Now, do you know anything about the governor's new health care plan for like replace Hawkeye and Iowa Cares? Do you have any?
That's still being developed right now. It's just like the Obamacare. We don't know what's going on. It's a train wreck. And I did vote against that expansion. our exchanges. It's an expansion is what it is. We're going to throw another 153,000 people on the Medicaid rolls. We probably could argue this all night long. But to answer your question, there's nothing that's been decided. It's all being written right now, which scares me. We need to have us as patients involved in that process, as well as maybe some of the suppliers in the medical field as well. Well,
don't you think that the governor should at least ask some of the clinical physicians about what their input should be on this?
Yes.
All right. Because the governor hasn't. So that's just, I mean, what I spent a couple of weeks ago going off about that.
Yeah.
So what is your number one priority?
Funny.
What is your number one priority for this upcoming
education's I'm very passionate about education. Let's talk about it. I'll sit around and talk to you, Lefty, and anybody that wants to talk, and let's see if we could come together and come up with some good ideas.
So what else?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're spending too darn much money in Iowa. I spent today at Link Associates. I took a tour there. What's going on there?
That's a great facility, isn't it?
What's going on there, as well as the school you're involved with, and the place up in Johnston,
youth homes,
but the other place for the disabled kids. Anyway, here's what I would say is we got our priorities upside down in the state of Iowa. We spend a lot of money where we shouldn't be spending money. I certainly have a problem with what happened with the fertilizer plant down in southwestern Iowa. I'm getting in trouble over that. But, what I would tell you is we got our priorities really screwed up in the state of Iowa, and we're spending too much money. We need to focus in on the people that really need us to help them, such as some of the problems that I was made aware of today at Link Associates. Now, that is a core responsibility of government to take care of people like that. And I heard a lot of horror stories about what's going on there. That's just one example, the elderly. But we spend money like we're a bunch of drunken Indians. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. It's probably not a nice thing to say. But a lot of drunken people is what I should have said.
I could use I know
drunken Indian right about now.
No, I know that there's a small 2-person law firm on the south side of Des Moines that could use a public assistance grant. I'm just saying.
You're just saying.
Well, I'm just saying
we
need to reprioritize how we function as a government and what services the people we represent expect.
I'm going to ask you a big picture question. What is the number? You laid out a lot of sort of kind of aspirational things just in that last little bit. What is the number one policy proposal that Brad Zahn, the senator, could lay in front of the people of Iowa that would take the large? I know you can't do it all in one shot. There's no silver bullet, but that would take the largest step towards achieving some of those goals that you discussed just now.
Well, education is something I'm very passionate about. Mm-hmm. That would be number one for me because it has so much effect on our economy, job creation, and what happens and the success of the state of Iowa. I would not start with, hey, let's shut down the Department of Education. I think this is something that has to be done incrementally, and that would be something that I would really, really be passionate about. Of course, I'm a small business person, and I think we pay too much taxes, but I really listen. We have an educated workforce, and we have good employers out there. That's the key to making the state of Iowa successful, and I do know that that's what the governor's trying to do. His intentions are pure.
Now, one of the things last year that was rather frustrating for me is I talked to several conservatives in the House and in the Senate, and they kept telling me, "Oh, we're cutting the budget. We're only increasing it by 3%."
Not true.
And that's one of the things I wanted to ask you. How is raising it 3%? One, cutting the budget, and two, what kind of fiscal conservative principles are engaged in that?
There is none.
All right.
We spent more money than we've ever spent in the history of the state of Iowa last year. Now, you could do the shell game and take it out of reserves and some of the other accounts that are out there, but the bottom line, we spent more money than we ever have in the history of the state of Iowa. I voted against every appropriation. Usually every year, I take an exception with judiciary budget because we have to have a healthy, performing court system.
I agree.
It's the foundation of the
Keep the lawyers paid.
Hey, thanks for we can thank Chief Justice Mark Cady for lifting that 2 hours early out on Tuesdays and Thursdays around the state, because that was and as speaking for someone who had to deal with it every single day, You close the clerk's office everywhere in all 99 counties at 2:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That is a pain in the butt, and it hurts things. It stops things dead in their tracks.
Well, I want to thank Brad Zahn for coming on. Brad, thank you again. You have earned the moniker of super friend of the show. Again, Lefty, he's always. You got anything going on this week?
Nope,
All
nothing.
Right. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in. We really want to give Brad Zahn a lot of thanks and wish him well in this upcoming legislative session. Keep going, Brad. We'll be back next week from 6 to 7 p.m. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Get over here. Love both of them.